Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today's story proves that just because someone's sweet and petite doesn't mean they won't verbally dismantle you in your own yard. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Karen used my flower pots as ashtrays, then my grandma weaponized sass and ended her reign of ash. Living next to Karen's been a masterclass in patience, passive aggression, and unexpected sass. She's a woman in her late 60s or early 70s, somewhere between retirement community potluck queen and makes you rethink calling your grandma sweet. And honestly, I've been trying to let her behavior slide out of respect for her age. I've always believed in respecting my elders, and hey, people go through a lot as they get older. It's not my place to add stress to someone's golden years, right? But this lady, she really tests that limit. To give you an idea of the daily nonsense, Karen regularly tosses debris into my garden like it's her personal compost heap. Branches, hedge trimmings, random trash. If it fits in her hands, it ends up over my fence. She's got an irrational vendetta against me parking in my own designated space because she says it blocks her view of the street. Spoiler alert, it's just a plain road. On top of that, she knocks on my door at least once a week to complain about noise that absolutely isn't coming from my place. Once she ranted about music that I later realized was coming from the teenager 3 houses down. Her worst offense? She's a heavy smoker and thinks my flower pots are the perfect ashtray. 4 cigarette butts a day minimum and sometimes more. My poor tulips have had more nicotine exposure than a bar in the 1950s. The irony? She constantly tells me my house and garden smell weird. Ma'am, you smell like a Marlboro factory fire. So yeah, it's been a struggle. Enter my step-grandmother. She's 82 years old, barely over 5 feet tall, and has arthritis in both knees. She recently came to stay with me for a week to visit and relax. I figured she'd sip tea, do crosswords, and share sweet old stories. What I didn't expect was for her to become my personal neighborhood enforcer. We were having tea one afternoon when Karen decided to strike again. She marched into her garden and dumped what looked like half a hedge over the fence into mine. My step-grandmother peered out the window, raised an eyebrow, and asked, "Are you really going to let her get away with that?" I started my usual spiel. She's elderly, I don't want to cause problems, she's probably lonely, blah blah, but my grandmother wasn't having it. She stood up, her expression somewhere between disappointed schoolteacher and military commander. She's not that old, and I didn't raise a doormat. Before I could stop her, she was marching toward the door with the kind of determination that made me question if her arthritis had magically healed. I scrambled to follow her, but she was already out the gate and halfway across the lawn, calling out, "Excuse me, sir," in a tone that could curdle milk. Karen turned, looking confused and slightly affronted. My grandmother wasted no time. Karen tried to play innocent, claiming I had thrown my own hedge trimmings into her garden, and she was merely returning them. A weak lie at best, considering the literal pile of evidence beneath her fence line. Without missing a beat, my step-grandmother pointed down and said, "Those are red-tip photinia trimmings. His hedges are all boxwood. Try again." I swear, Karen blinked like someone had just slapped her with a botanical encyclopedia. Karen began stammering, something about it being a misunderstanding or mistaken identity of foliage. Yeah, she really tried that, but my grandmother shut her down fast. And you think tattling like a 5-year-old's gonna make it better? Do you really think anyone's gonna believe that after all the cigarette butts and complaints? She then leaned in slightly and added in that terrifying, calm grandma voice, "Pick up the hedge trimmings, and while you're down there, you might as well pick up your jowls too." I gasped. Out loud. Karen stood there stunned, mouth open, blinking like she was rebooting. Meanwhile, I just stood in the background making dramatic finger snaps because honestly, what else could I do? My tiny arthritis-stricken grandmother had just verbally destroyed my worst neighbor with more style and grace than I ever could. Karen didn't say a word. She just turned and shuffled inside like a deflated balloon. 10 minutes later, I watched from the kitchen window as she awkwardly gathered up her hedge trimmings in a plastic bag, still wearing her slippers. Since then, the debris dumping has mysteriously stopped. The cigarette butts have also dramatically reduced, and Karen has not knocked on my door once to complain about noise. It's like the presence of a tiny old lady with unmatched sass reset her whole behavior. Being old doesn't give you a free pass to be a menace. What they're doing is invading and damaging/vandalizing your property, i.e. cigarette butts and your plants. You need to report them to either the landlord, property manager, and/or authorities. You shouldn't have to live like that. At the very least, they need a good talking to by someone of authority. And our second story. Where's your manager? I want to start this off with a little context. I work at a GameStop located right next to a Walmart, and I've always followed the golden rule. If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're missing out. So naturally, I tend to arrive at least 30 minutes early to my shift. That buffer gives me time to decompress, sip some coffee, scroll through my phone, and mentally prep for the glorious world of customer service. This particular day, I arrived even earlier, about 45 minutes before my shift. Since I had time to kill, I figured I'd swing into Walmart to grab a few things, some ibuprofen, a few feminine items, and a drink. My manager had also asked me to grab her lunch from the Subway inside, and I was in the mood for a sandwich too. All in all, I was just vibing, minding my business, and trying to enjoy some peace before I had to throw on my happy to help voice. Now, important detail here, I was wearing 2 lanyards. One had my GameStop name tag and keys, and the other held my personal keys. My lanyard is obviously not the blue Walmart one with the big bold logo. It's red and black and says GameStop in all caps, but apparently that doesn't matter to some people. Enter Karen. She walks up while I'm looking at my phone trying to order our Subway sandwiches through the app. Karen, excuse me, do you know where the light bulbs are? Me, politely, oh sorry, I only know the general area, not exactly where they are. Karen, already annoyed, what do you mean? Don't you work here? You're wearing a lanyard and using one of those scanner things the employees have? I look down at my phone, which is quite clearly not a Walmart scanner, just a regular smartphone in my hand, but she's on a roll. Me, no, I don't work here. Karen, getting louder, yes you do. Where's your customer service? At this point, my patience is already running thin and her volume is making people nearby glance over, so I decide to match her energy. Me, well, it's about 30 minutes away and not here. Karen, don't you take that attitude with me, girl. I'm a customer. Me, cool, so am I. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go pay for my pads and ibuprofen. I start walking off thinking this is over. Spoiler, it's not. Karen grabs my arm. Not hard enough to hurt, but enough to make me stop in my tracks. Touching a stranger without consent? Bold move. Karen shouting, where the hell is your manager? Without skipping a beat, I hold up my GameStop lanyard like I'm flashing a badge. Me, at GameStop. Karen, completely missing the point. Why are they at GameStop? Me, because I work at GameStop, not Walmart. Now I've drawn the attention of at least 2 real Walmart employees nearby who are looking increasingly entertained. Finally, I'm able to walk off for good. I head to the self-checkout, scan my ibuprofen and feminine products, pay, and grab the receipt. Then I stroll over to Subway to pick up lunch for myself and my manager. Still no sign of Karen, thankfully. The funniest part? She never even tried to come into my store to complain. And even if she had, I can guarantee my manager would have laughed it off. She's awesome, and she knows how ridiculous retail gets, especially when you're located near a black hole of Karens like Walmart. Moral of the story? Just because someone has a lanyard and looks vaguely helpful doesn't mean they work for you. And if you try to force customer service out of someone who doesn't even work there, don't be surprised when the service you get is very different from what you expected. And our last story. They trashed our robot mower, so we lawyered up and exposed their whole corrupt HOA empire. For years, my best friend lived quietly in a townhouse complex that could have been mistaken for a retirement community. She kept to herself, avoiding crowds and thriving in the predictability of her peaceful life until one spring day when everything changed. It was a beautiful morning, and she opened her windows to enjoy the fresh air, only to discover one of the landscapers from the complex relieving himself in her bushes. Instead of offering an apology or looking embarrassed, the guy locked eyes with her, gave a smug grin, and finished his business, making an obscene gesture before walking away. Naturally, she was furious. She called the landscaping company in tears, expecting them to fire the guy. She even gave them a detailed account of what had happened, hoping they would take action. But when the landscaper came back the next week, it wasn't to apologize. Instead, he knocked on her door, demanding to use her bathroom, and insulted her, calling her a little bleep for daring to complain. At that point, my friend had had enough. She refused to let any more of their workers near her yard, so in an attempt to keep up with the HOA's strict landscaping rules, I started mowing her lawn myself. However, despite my best efforts, she was fined for grass that was 0.2 inches too long. This was the last straw. That's when we got creative. We invested in Rover, the robot lawnmower, silent, efficient, and programmed to maintain her grass at the precise 2.5 inches required. We even gave Rover googly eyes and a name and set up a motion-activated camera for extra protection. We thought we had finally found the perfect solution. But a week later, Rover was gone. The only trace left behind was some plastic shards matching the robot's shell found in the dumpster. My friend immediately requested the security footage from the complex's management, but they ignored her. Frustrated, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I called in the Shark, a corporate lawyer who absolutely despises injustice. She's the kind of person who gets more satisfaction from taking down corrupt systems than from her actual day job. She took one look at the case and immediately started her attack. The Shark sued both the HOA and the landscaping company, demanding access to their financial records. It turned out the HOA treasurer had been overpaying his brother-in-law's company for landscaping services. Even more shocking, the Shark uncovered that the landscaper who had harassed my friend was none other than the owner's son. With relentless precision, the Shark secured the footage of the landscaper dumping Rover in the trash. It was all caught on camera, the son tossing our beloved robot mower into the dumpster like it was nothing. At mediation, the Shark didn't just win, she utterly humiliated them. The HOA treasurer resigned in disgrace, the landscaping contract was terminated immediately, the son was banned from the property for good, and my friend received compensation, not to mention the satisfaction of watching them squirm in defeat. Ultimately, my friend moved away, leaving the HOA in utter shambles. Rover may have paid the ultimate price, but his sacrifice uncovered a system built on nepotism and retaliation. And as for the Shark, she left a trail of wreckage in her wake, proving once again that if you mess with the wrong person, you end up getting eaten alive. Okay, first of all, justice for Rover. That little googly-eyed hero deserves better than to be dumpstered by some snot-nosed landscaper with a mommy and daddy hookup. May he roll in greener pastures. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.